what is this talk about? Oh, it's on a short week, and we don't know if the atmosphere will be as hyped and all this and that. Blah. What the are people talking about? It's a 400
haven't heard any of that.
I don't think this stadium's going to lack juice.
And it's a conference game. Like, if this was a Friday night Northern Iowa game, it'd be a different conversation.
It's a ranked home conference opener. Let's go.
45, 40, 35, 40. He's going to go. It's time, people. Feel it.
Big Red Junkies.
Day by day. Day by day. He gets better and better. He gets better and better. Team is If we die, we die.
Man, put a child in that. Put him in the aisle.
Bring that trophy back to Lincoln.
We're 3-0, man.
Absolutely.
We're 3-0, and as you guys can tell, Matt is back in jail. Work release did not let him out tonight, but no.
He missed his curfew, so
Yes. Yeah.
he had to get punished for it.
Yeah, he's in for the whole week. Now, Matt's on a work trip to D.C. this week. He'll be joining us later in the show for our game picks. But before we get to Illinois, we want to talk about Northern Iowa and the fact that we are 3-0 for the first time since 2016.
Absolutely. I love it. I mean, that doesn't sound like a lot of other people love it, but I love it.
There's a lot of really, really, really weird animosity amongst the fan base.
Is it really that weird?
It seems weird.
Okay.
It seems weird to me. You don't see a team that's starving for wins, regardless of where they come from, where you hear all offseason the fan base saying, please, just get us to a bowl game. Please, Matt Rhule, you can get us that 6th win. Get us to a bowl game. I don't even care if it's ugly. I don't care if we don't look good doing it. I just want to go to a bowl game. We need the extra practice, whatever it might be. The fan base has been starved for it. And now all of a sudden we're 3-0 and everybody thinks it's fucking 1997 again. And, 34-3, that was really a piss poor performance.
You know, it's funny that you use the word the fans have been starved for it. You know, a lot of times when you're like super hungry and you're just fucking starving and you think you can just eat the fucking mountain and you get like 7 bites in, it's like, shit, I'm full. Like, fuck. My eyes were much bigger than my stomach.
You kind of get retarded, is what you're saying.
And that's almost kind of what it is. Like, we have been starving for any sort of consistency, whether it's wins or not, just consistent play, which we've been getting that. And all of a sudden we get a couple of nibbles of that food and we're like, oh, we're full. Fuck this. Like, that's kind of what it is.
But I don't get it, man. It's the same type of griping that we heard when we were going 9 and 10 wins under Bo Pelini. Like, come on, guys. We had a 30-plus point win at home. We've covered the spread on our first 3 games. We've been dominant through our first 3 games in every facet of the game, other than special teams, maybe.
Yeah, we are. By the way, we are one of 4 teams in the entire country that are undefeated and have covered all of those games.
Hey, you ask any serious sports bettor? Good teams win. Great teams cover. And us covering spreads the way we have is pretty impressive.
I wouldn't necessarily still qualify us as a great team, but
I wouldn't either.
I get the point.
Especially when you look at our competition.
Yes.
But you know the boys that you're close with over on 1620, they were talking about that this afternoon. They were taking a look back at 2016 and looking at the PFF grades, or not PFF, Sports Power Index, SPI grades on our opponents.
The Bill Conley numbers.
Yeah, all of our opponents through the first 7 wins, because we went 7-0 to start the season, and then it turned into a laughingstock after that. And they were trying to look at that and see, is anything common? Is this any indicator of maybe we shouldn't get our hopes up for this being an exciting season for any reason? I enjoyed the conversation. I'm a numbers guy, you know that. I'm a stats guy. I like to look at past performance to predict future things, but you can't. It's a different team. It's a different coach. This is not an NFL team with, it's not the Patriots where you can assume that the philosophies and everything are still the exact same they've been for the last 20 years and that 3/4 of the players are still there. It's a completely different roster. It's a completely different coaching staff. It's a completely different, you said the word earlier, set of consistent things that we're seeing. You have a consistent message.
It's also different college football.
Very different college football. But you have a consistent message amongst the entire team, coach and player.
Mm-hmm.
You have a consistent performance amongst the entire team, coach and player. You have a consistent set of expectations amongst the entire team, coach and player. This is lights out, completely different than 2016. We might not even end with as good of a record as we did in 2016, but this is a different team. Everything is totally different. And like you said, college football is completely different right now.
Yeah. I've been trying my best, and you know that I'm consistently dubbed as the negative Nancy, hater, whatever anybody wants to say about
You
Nebraska
haven't been
football.
that much on this show this year.
I've been trying. So I heard this from Damon a handful of weeks ago. I don't really remember exactly when he said it, but it was either right before the season or maybe after the first game of the season. And he made the comment that if we as a fan base want the team and the program to change their expectations and change their mindset of how seasons go, then the fans need to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of this as well, but the whole thing of, well, here, I just had that feeling of here we go again, that sort of mentality. It's understandable because it's ingrained in us for way too fucking long right now. So it's easier said than done, but at the same time, I heard that and I was like, you know what? I really want to try to have that sort of a mentality going into all this stuff. I haven't been perfect at it. I slip into that, mindset every once in a while. But at the same time,
everybody's going to.
At the same time, it's true. If we want this program to change, then the fan base needs to change too.
Yeah.
And, one of the other things, of course, Sunday and Monday, you go into, specifically Monday, you go into work and, you just come down here, but I go into work and, of course, you hear the griping, moaning, and groaning and all that stuff. And I started to think about it, and I was just like, you know what? Going into this Northern Iowa game, we said it here on the show. We've heard countless other people say going into that Northern Iowa game that Northern Iowa plays like a Big Ten style football team.
Absolutely.
Well, if that's the case, we just beat a Big Ten style football team by 31 points.
Yeah, 34-3.
So
even if it's the worst team in the Big Ten.
Is that bad to beat a Big Ten style team? And I know a lot of people their first response is, well, the Big Ten will have more talent than Northern Iowa. You're right. But the style of football will be the same.
Matt Rhule doesn't get up on the podium and just say random shit to say random shit. He was calling out the former situation that we had here and expressing a direct line that you can look at and say, from a competitive standpoint, this is where Northern Iowa is and where Nebraska was prior to this year. When he was talking about the fact that they had draftable offensive linemen on their offensive line and Nebraska previously didn't, other than Cam Jurgens.
Yeah.
That's evident. And you look at the competition level, you look at how they played us on Saturday night. I was there to see it in person. I've rewatched it twice since. They were big boys. They are the same size line, as almost identical size line as what we're going to see this weekend. And they played really, really well.
They did.
This was their Super Bowl. We got their absolute best shot. Pretend we're the champs coming off, and we're getting everybody's best shot. That's what we got last week from Northern Iowa. And they played really well. But guess what? 34-3 is still 34-3.
It is.
South Carolina, Kentucky got boat raced by South Carolina in week 2. They almost beat Georgia. They were 1 point loss to Georgia in week 3. And I think everybody can agree Georgia's a fuck ton better team than South Carolina and a fuck ton better team than Nebraska is.
Yes. And they're also, I know what the score was, and they're also still a fuck ton better than Kentucky. It just was a bad game.
It's a bad game.
Which is why I said before we started recording, we were talking about other games. I said, winning is hard.
Yes.
It's,
especially in today's college football. Ravi and Damon were talking about it yesterday morning, on Monday morning. We're recording this Tuesday night. They were talking about it Monday morning, and Ravi made reference to the fact that they talked about this 3 years ago, that this additional COVID year was going to affect the way FCS teams and those lower level FBS teams are able to get some talent in, because rosters just aren't big enough to carry that many extra players for a whole extra year. Maybe some of that's why they looked more competitive. I don't know. But at the same time, you saw North Dakota State, an FCS school, going to Colorado and give them fits. We didn't have fits like that. Yeah, there were times where it didn't look pretty.
North Dakota State went where? Sorry.
Oh yeah, to that one state. I'm gonna have to edit that out. Shit.
No one knows what it means.
The little sister to the west.
Yeah. But when you look at the way that game played out, was it pretty? No, absolutely not. Did you feel good about what we did? Absolutely not. But from a standpoint of, we didn't put anything on film for Illinois this week. Yeah, we played really well against Colorado, but we didn't put hardly anything on film against Northern Iowa. We didn't give Illinois any way to prepare for what we were going to do for them. We were fucking around with Heinrich Harburg on the field for half the game, it seemed like. The funny thing was, I didn't even notice that sitting in the stands until second half. Like, people started to talk about it and notice it in the second half. I didn't even know he was out there because the couple packages in the first quarter that he was out there on were on the other end of the field. So I had no idea. You're a distance away. You're still taking in the crowd and doing all that.
You know, one of the big takeaways as far as how Northern Iowa played us, specifically when we were on defense, is, and this has been brought up a couple of times throughout the day, but I was texting a few people, and I don't remember if I texted you at the time, but during the game, they used our explosiveness, our speed on our defensive line against us.
Oh, on the offensive line, 100%.
Well, it wasn't just it was, but their running backs were waiting. They would. There were so many times specifically in the first half where our edge guys got up the field so quickly, we just went right underneath them. And it was just like, I mean, obviously you can't tell those guys to slow down because they play at one speed, and that's great. This isn't a criticism or anything else like that, but Northern Iowa.
But that's a coachable thing.
Yeah, and it showed in the second half. Northern Iowa came in with a great game plan to keep the ball in their hands and out of ours. And they executed it very well. Does it suck that we didn't win 70-2? Yes. But Jesus Christ, we won by 31 points. Like, I'm not going to complain. We talk about this before as far as, we've been starved for wins throughout here. How many times throughout the years that you've known me where I say, we can win by 1 point and I'll be fucking happy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Win in advance.
Absolutely. But the point you bring up about the way that they were playing us, especially in the run game, and the way that they were scheming, what they were doing with the offensive line and any pre-snap motion that they had, it was amazing. Like, they were doing a really good job of making our guys truly dive. I don't know, and I said this about the crowd. I said it was a forced, energetic hangover crowd. It was like that. Shit, I went out and had way too many drinks last night, but God damn it, my kid's birthday is today. I'm going to have to power through and act excited. It was that type of, forced energy that you have to get out there. There was still energy there. It was shocking to see and hear the level of noise we got out, especially in the first half for an FCS school. But to your point about the way that they game planned and came in with this perfect scheme to work against the aggressiveness of our defense, which is very coachable and something that I guarantee they're talking about this week. They still got held. It felt like we got gashed on the ground a lot, and they still came in finishing at 3.6 yards per carry.
Yeah.
It felt like it was going to be 5 or 6. Like, you still held them under 4 yards a carry, and it didn't feel good. Like, no. That's the type of expectation we've now gotten used to in such a short amount of time with this team.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
One of the stats that I saw, as far as, like I said, they'd go like underneath our edges, getting upfield too quickly on runs on those directions right there, off of the tackles. 52% of their yards were off those two sides. Like, I mean, they just came in with a great game plan. They kept the ball away from us. I don't really want to say we couldn't get off the field on third downs because they had 16 third downs, but they also only converted 6 of them. So it wasn't like it was a huge percentage. It's just they just kept going, and they
stayed on schedule, and it was a short schedule.
Yeah. Well, and also as far as us on offense, and people are like, "Oh, well, we didn't score more." First of all, we didn't have the ball much because they kept the ball. Also, we scored on 6 of our 8 drives.
Yeah.
Is that bad?
No. We didn't use a punter.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
And
you can say what you want to about the interception that was thrown. It in the stadium, the replays that they were showing in the stadium, I don't know if they were showing Matt Rhule freaking out on the sideline.
Oh, yeah.
The shots they were showing us in the stadium, it literally looked like your hand was here, my hand's here, and we're holding the ball together, which would be a tie goes to the runner situation. I saw it on TV. They had a different angle that the in-stadium cameras weren't showing, which obviously Rhule.
It was a great defensive play.
He's only seen it was a fantastic defensive play. Yeah. And you know what? It was an underthrown ball.
Yep.
It's okay to say he didn't throw a good ball. It's okay to say that.
Raiola said it.
Yeah, I mean, that's just what it is. We're so quick to criticize everything else about this team right now, but for some reason nobody will say anything bad about Raiola. He'll be the first one to point it out.
Yeah.
He's the first one noticing it. I'm sure he was beating himself up about it the moment he went back to the bench. That's just part of football. You throw the ball, you're going to throw picks. That's the way it is.
Did any of the other great quarterbacks in the history of the sport ever throw an interception?
You know what's kind of crazy? I remember my boy Tom Brady. He threw at least one or two.
Hell,
Patrick Mahomes had what, 2 on Sunday?
Well, one of the best quarterbacks of all time is leading the forever in interceptions thrown. Brett Favre, like he has more.
There you go.
He has more interceptions than anybody else has ever thrown.
His career ended on an interception.
Whatever.
The last pass he ever threw in the NFL. But all in all, it was a dominant performance by a dominant team over a much lesser opponent.
Yeah,
it's the same thing we did the week before, and the same thing we did the week before that. And we're about to get into what we're going to do this week. But before we do that, if you thought the game was good, hit the like button. If you thought the game was great and we dominated, hit the subscribe button. Do it both. Don't be a pussy. We love you guys. We love doing this stuff. We need your support. Jump on that for us. Share it with your friends if you can.
That's what I was just going to say. And tell somebody else to do the same thing.
You have anything else on Northern Iowa, or you want to get into the question?
Pretty much just the questions.
The results that I heard were not so good.
Oh, they were good for one of us. Not anybody that's sitting here.
The prisoner.
But man, he dominated this thing. I did not.
We'll give him one of these.
Yeah, exactly. The first question was rushing yards by Dante Dowdell, 74.5. He had 55. Everybody took the over. They were wrong.
You took the over too?
Everybody took the over.
For some reason, I thought you took the under on that one.
Nope.
Because I remember you talking about you making the point that we were going to spread it around a lot.
I said if I would want to take the under at a certain extent because I kind of think that they're going to have a shit ton of guys run the ball. And I should have listened to myself. But rushing yards by Ty Edwards for Northern Iowa, 49.5. He had 37. You were the only one to take the over. You even, when Matt and I were kind of talking about it, you were like, nope, you're not going to convince me to change this. I'm like, okay. Passes by Nebraska of 20-plus yards, 3.5. They had 3. Matt was...
Would have been if that interception hadn't happened.
Yeah. Matt was the only one to take the under. There will be a theme to this where Matt is the
only one?
Maybe not the only one, but Matt picked the correct answer. Field goals made by both teams. Both teams actually stepped up and made field goals when they don't really do that so far on the season. I had it at 1.5. There were 3 made field goals. Matt and the fans got that one. Number of Nebraska players with 2+ tackles at 13.5 players. Do you know this number? How many do you think had 2+ tackles?
I would say 12.
19 guys.
Jesus Christ.
Had 2+ tackles.
Oh my God.
I was the
only
one.
As you can tell, I just closed my stats on this. I'm like, I'm not going to go pull that back up that fast.
I was the only one to stupidly take the under on that one.
19 dudes had 2+ tackles. Oh my God.
That was a lot.
Did Gifford lead us in tackles?
Yes, he had like
That's
10.
what I thought. He was all over the place.
Yeah. Number of Nebraska players with a reception, 9.5. The number was 10. You, BJ, and Matt took the over. And the last one was turnover margin for Nebraska plus 1.5. It ended up at even. Matt was the only one to take the under.
Wow.
Out of 7 questions, Matt went 6-1.
Pessimistic bitch.
And just as Matt went 6-1, I went 1-6.
Oof. And I stayed steady Eddie right in the middle, didn't I?
Nope, you went 2-5.
Oh my God. I didn't think it was that bad.
And the fans went 3-4. So
God damn.
yeah, Matt fucking dominated this one.
Domination Station. The only other thing I was going to say about that, I know it's been something we've talked about a couple times. I know you guys both thought for sure Danny Kaelin was going to get into this game. What did you think about the fact that we didn't use him?
I don't really think about it, to be honest.
The Redshirt's an interesting situation there, especially when our two easiest games are now off of our schedule.
I think if the score would have been what a lot of fans wanted the score to be, he would have been.
You think so?
Yeah.
My other question about that is, what do you think about the announcement now in this almost new style, it seems like, of him using a true freshman and then redshirting them in their sophomore year? Riley Van Poppel's joining Malachi Coleman on that list.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
I mean, if the biggest thing that we've talked about a lot with Rhule is his open and honestness with all of his players. And you know what? Here's the situation. If you don't like it, best of luck to you. But this is our plan. This is what we're doing. The message is the same. The standard is the standard. And we'd love for you to be a part of it.
See, I don't, even less with Riley Van Poppel than I do with Malachi Coleman. I just don't think that this has anything to do with upholding a standard or anything like that. This has to do with years. This has to do with, hey, we got dudes in your spot right now. You're going to fight for playing time, or you can get an extra year of eligibility just in case you're not ready to get to the NFL yet.
How I meant it was, here's the situation. Here's where we see you right now. Here's where we see the team right now.
Yeah.
Here's the team. This is where you fit. I mean, you're still part of the team, but you're like one of those Venn diagrams. You're just off to the side as far as, you're still on the team, but you're not going to get a whole lot and you're just going to waste a year of eligibility. We don't want to waste a year of eligibility on you, but it's totally up to you. If you want to just play, like he said in the press conference, if you want to play 10 to 12 snaps this year, fine. But if you don't want to, and you want a red shirt, and you want to just play the 4 games, bonus.
It's wild with as much as Van Poppel and Malachi Coleman played last year.
Mm-hmm.
Just to see how much extra we have right now. And the dudes like a Ja'Cory Barney that are just making themselves undeniable, got to get on the field.
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have, I would say, for sure. We are on to Illinois.
Big Ten conference opener.
Yeah, Big Ten conference opener, man. The preseason's over. As you said last week, after our first 2 weeks, now after the third week, the cupcakes are out of the way.
All the cupcakes are done.
This being a ranked matchup now on a Friday night. First of all, that's cool as hell. We haven't had, what has it been since 2013 we played a ranked team?
Well, some people have brought up that technically we had a unranked home game in 2014 against Minnesota because they were ranked in the CFP poll. But I was going back to just the AP poll, not using the CFP poll, considering that poll is the only poll that matters first and foremost, but it only comes out halfway through the season. So it's kind of hard to really justify that as far as this stat. But it was since 2013, the UCLA game.
What about, was the Ohio State game not in Nebraska in 2016?
Ranked on ranked. So
Nebraska. Yeah, we were ranked though when we played them in 2016.
No.
We were 7-0.
Oh, no, but that was in Columbus. I'm sorry.
Okay,
sorry. I thought
see, for some reason I thought that we played Ohio State at Nebraska that year. That's what I thought.
No,
that's my bad.
In Ohio State.
Because I'd heard that several different times, and I was like, this just doesn't make sense to me. I thought for some reason that game was here.
Yep. I'm
excited about this one, man. I think it's going to be a better game than we expected at the beginning of the year, especially me in the preseason. This was when I was chalking up to an easy win. You look at the line on it, I think Vegas is kind of chalking it up to an easy win for Nebraska, but there's a lot to not like about what we're looking at for Illinois. They're one of the top units in the country at taking away the ball.
Mm-hmm.
They've got 9 picks on the season, I think.
6. They got 6.
Regardless, I think they're +8 in the turnovers category right now, and they are just, a couple of the interceptions that they had in that Kansas game, they weren't bad balls. The receiver didn't play it poorly. That dude just made a play.
The big thing about their defense so far this season is they're not flashy at all, but they're just efficient. So they have all these turnovers and they're doing great in that aspect, but they don't have very many tackles for loss. They have 11 tackles for loss on the season. They only have 5 sacks on the season. So it's they're not flashy by any means. They're just very, very efficient. And they're secondary. We when we did our season breakdown, game by game. And I brought up how 2 years ago, Illinois had a great secondary. They lost a bunch of them to the draft. And then last year, they had a shitty secondary because they were replacing all those guys, but they had a great front seven. Well, they lost a handful.
They flip-flopped this year.
That's basically what it is. And their secondary is really good.
Yeah.
Again, not flashy by any means, but they're just very effective.
The thing that I disliked the most about what Satterfield said today was that very much like what Tony White tries to do with our defense, you're not gonna have any clue whether it's man or zone pre-snap. And I think that that's something that is going to come as more of an advantage to us this year, as opposed to what we might have seen about them last year, just from that IQ of the quarterback level. Yes, Dylan Raiola is still a true freshman. Yes, he very well could have his freshman moment in the middle of the Illinois game. He's given me no reason to question his football IQ and his preparation for this stuff. I think he's going to be ready to go in this game. And I mean, based on the way that their defensive line looked, just watching their last two games, I really don't see a reason why we're not going to be able to put at least 200 yards on the ground against them.
Well, that's what we're going to need to do, because I listened to a Illinois podcast yesterday, and they were talking about how if you can run the ball against this defense to be able to bring down one of their safeties to help protect in the run game, then you can probably throw on this secondary. But if you can't run against them, that secondary is going to be able to stay back and cover everybody, and you're going to be in trouble. And that's going to be the biggest thing for Nebraska is, can we run the ball effectively and efficiently?
They're going to get a big dose of Dante Dowdell, especially in the first quarter and a half of this game. And if we're having the same struggles that we had last week running them, which I don't know if that was one of those things that I really thought, if we were showing anything from an emotional letdown, from any sort of a letdown at all after the little ladies next door game, if there was a letdown on that, it was in our rush blocking, and just schematically we were lining it. It was like our running backs were just running into the backs of dudes.
Yeah,
there was no effort there in the run game. It was weird. It was tough to watch.
But I sent you those Pro Football Focus grades as far as their pass blocking and their run blocking.
You said Evans was our worst one.
He was below 50. Yeah. Like everybody else was like 60 and below.
It was like a Colorado line grade up in here.
Who?
Yeah. Wah, wah.
And then our pass blocking in the Northern Iowa game was like all high 70 for one guy, and then all in the 80s.
Yeah,
for everybody.
Well, I mean, they didn't run the ball, or they didn't rush us a lot in that. It seemed to me when I was watching, especially the way they played Kansas, it seemed like they're kind of content the way that we are with rushing 4, maybe 5 guys, and everybody else stays back in coverage. Mm-hmm. If that's the way they're going to play this, our run game has to get going. Exactly like you just said. Do you think that that's something we're going to be able to do based on the numbers you've looked at?
I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, I know that I just got done saying our run blocking against Northern Iowa was terrible. So it's kind of hard to justifiably say, yeah, we can run the ball against Illinois, even though we didn't against Northern Iowa. But I think if it's considering you're coming off of that Northern Iowa game and the way that these guys coach this Nebraska team, I can only imagine a fire has lit up underneath all of their asses, not just on the line, but also as a running back core. Maybe seeing a little bit more Emmett Johnson behind Ramir and Dowdell. Yeah, I mean, also with how hard it might end up being with passing the ball compared to our first 3 games, our first 3 cupcakes, we're going to have to run the ball to be able to pass. And that's going to be, like I said, to me, that's the biggest key to this entire game, which is why I have a question on that later on.
Yeah. When we're looking at the guys that we're going to have back, it looks like everybody's going to be ready to go, other than we found out again Micah Mazuka is going to be a coach's decision, do not play, even though he is listed on the depth chart at 2 behind Latovsky. Latovsky played well last year, or last week, excuse me. He played well last year too.
Really well last week, yeah.
I'm not worried about that whatsoever. I think that it's concerning, whatever it is that happened. Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody's ever going to know for sure. whatever it is that happened with Mazuka, I hope they get the fuck over it soon because, in my opinion, he's probably our best offensive lineman that we still had out there.
Yep.
Got to get him back up there. Yep. Looking at their defensive side of the ball, we've kind of covered everything as far as the way that they're going to look to take things away. It sounds like they play probably about 70% man on the backside. Is that what you've seen?
Well, I mean, it's kind of one of those that they disguise a lot of things in their secondary because they're so experienced and talented back there. They've got two guys with the last name Scott. By the way, they're not related. I looked into that. I was like, oh, and honestly, when I looked up their pictures and stuff, they kind of look alike. But I was like, nope. When I went into their bios, they had different parents, so they don't. But, another thing that I wanted to bring up about their defense is that Nebraska, the teams that Nebraska has played, have missed an average of 10.6 tackles per game. Illinois averages missing 7 tackles a game. So they are a sure tackled team, which I would expect from a Brett Bielema coach team.
Yeah.
So, like I said, they're not flashy, but they're efficient. Not just with their coverages, but with their tackling.
That's kind of also the way they play on offense.
Yeah.
They haven't been flashy, but as long as Altmaier can get a clean pocket, he seems to be making good decisions. He's not turning the ball over.
And not at all. 0 interceptions.
Yeah, he's
70%
he looks
percentage.
like a totally different quarterback than what we played last year.
Yep.
Which is a little bit of a cause for pause, but at the same time, I know you've already prepared some stuff on this, their offensive line's not been that good.
No.
And they have not played a defensive front that's even gotten close to what we have. We have Jamari Butler back. He's on he got a week off to rest from the sounds of it. He could have gone last week, but coach kind of decided that wasn't a necessity. I'm excited to see him look super fiery in this game and be getting back there quite a bit.
One of the things that I saw as far as with their offensive line, and it can kind of go in with their running back, who, by the way, is another big motherfucker like we played last week. He's 6'3", 250.
250?
Yeah.
Well, that's what they said. They thought game weight on that 6'4" dude, they thought he was closer to 250.
Yeah.
But he looked every bit of it.
So on the season, Illinois is averaging rushing the ball 4.3 yards per carry. Up the middle, rushing the ball, they average 2.5 yards a carry.
Wow.
So, that's where we got to make our hay as far as, we talked about it with the Northern Iowa game. On the edges, we got upfield a little bit too much. Again, not necessarily an insult because that's what you want to do, but Northern Iowa took advantage of that. If we can clog that up a little bit more, I'm very comfortable with who we have on the inside to take care of and maybe even shrink that number of 2.5 yards a carry that Illinois has so far on the season running up the middle.
Yeah. Do you see that it's going to be something from a get to the quarterback situation, that this is going to be a little bit more of a blitz heavy game for us? Because we're going to have to make him uncomfortable.
We're going to have to make him move.
He's mobile enough.
He led the Big Ten, he led the Big Ten in scramble yards last year. I don't really know where he's at this year. I couldn't really find anything on that at this time. It might be too early in the season to really look into stuff like that, but he's got 2 really big guys to throw the ball to, but he only throws the ball to 2 guys. Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin, they have 15 and 16 catches. Nobody else has more than 3 catches.
And those 2 dudes have made some plays.
Yes.
There was when I was watching the Kansas game, there was a nice little one-handed little grab along the sideline down there. They've got some athletes out there. It kind of reminds me of the 1-2 punch we have with Nair and Banks.
Yep.
But looking at what Altmaier was able to do last year against us, he was a scrambler last year. He does have that ability to get outside of the pocket, but we did not let him do that last year. He got sacked twice, but he had 7 total carries for -3 yards.
Yeah.
And we did get him to throw a pick last year.
Yes.
I think if we can make him as uncomfortable as we did last year, we should be able to rattle him a little bit and get a similar result. Do you think so?
Well, and I mean, if we're able to have the run defense that we had against them last year, where they had 21 rushing yards last year, obviously we all know about the goal line stop that we had against them last year.
Yep.
That really kind of got our momentum really going in that game and forced him to throw 47 times against us last year, which I don't think that they really wanted him to do. In fact, looking at it now, he only threw the ball over 30 times 3 times, I'm sorry, and once was against us with 47. The second highest was 36 times.
Well, if we're not going to let them run the ball, they're going to have to throw it.
Yeah. But he also threw for 289 yards against us last year. So,
Yep.
I mean, they were able to move the ball, at least in that aspect.
We were
through the
very
air,
bend, don't break in that game
Yes.
last year.
Yes.
Which I'm okay with.
Yeah.
That's something that was talked about after the Northern Iowa game. Oh, well, why are we giving up yards? Goes back to the old Bo Pelini and
Yeah. It's not about yards, man. It's about points.
Yeah. Last time I checked, points win games, not yards.
Yeah.
And that's I'm okay with that. As a Patriots fan, that's the way Bill Belichick's defenses have been dominant forever.
Mm-hmm.
They're not all about, we got to have the best stats for yardage and things like that. No. How many points did you score? Yep. Did we score more than you? That's what matters.
Yep. That's why, like earlier in the season, when I was trying to come up with one of these questions, I think it was for the very first game, I asked you guys, do you want me to do a total defense question or scoring defense question? And you and Matt both were like, scoring defense, that's what matters. Like
points matter.
And I agree.
Let's talk about
I just was, Yeah.
But that's a good segue into our questions.
All right. Let me scroll down here.
I'm sorry. I should ask, was there anything else you wanted to
go
over on the early stuff?
Not really. I mean, I pretty much got most of it out as far as, I really liked watching this defense. It's just, again, they're not flashy. They're kind of boring, but they're effective.
Well, and I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody. We haven't played a ton of tough competition so far either. UTEP's proven to be absolutely god-awful. Mm-hmm. If you were going to ask me to rank the teams that we've played so far, they'd be in order of the way that we played them. I think you and I probably played us the best of the three teams, even though Colorado scored 10 points.
Yeah.
But the last time, just to bring this up, for people that want to keep bitching about, finding ways to bitch about stuff, the last time that Nebraska held opponents through the first three games under 20 points or at 20 points was 2005.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of one of the other things we brought up when we were.
Sue was here after that, by the way.
If I were to tell you at the beginning of the year, if through three games we had outscored our opponents 102-20, would you take that?
Fuck yeah.
Okay. Wait, what?
Fuck yeah! Fuck yeah!
Exactly.
And again. Fuck yeah! Over and over again.
Yeah. All right. Question number 1. I kind of like this one. The last question I fucking love. But anyway.
All right.
Points scored on Nebraska's first drive. We've scored a touchdown on all three of our drives so far, the first drive this season. First time in season since, I think it was 2014. I had the number on Twitter. I forgot to look it up before I did this. But I put the number at 6.5 points on the first drive just because I was like, well, maybe we score a touchdown and miss the extra point or something like that. Let's just have some fun with it.
Silly. Yeah, no, I'm going with the touchdown on it.
All right.
I think that the best drive of the game is typically our scripted one coming out in the first half.
By the way, Illinois has allowed 0 points on first drive so far this season. I know it's 3 games, not very good 3 games. I'm just letting you know.
Hey, they haven't played Dylan Raiola.
I just had to bring up the stat for both teams. So
yeah,
even though we've scored a touchdown on all 3 of our first drives, Illinois has given up 0 on all of their first drives on defense. So
before we move on, I made the comment about they haven't played Dylan Raiola, but I'm kind of serious about that. And I'm loving how much it was. I'm not going to comment. I'm not going to name a starter. Talk about all 3 guys equally. Praise across all. It was equal. He's not ready. He's not ready. But now that he's placed the crown on his head, he's given him his due.
Mm-hmm. Rhule
did an interview on Rich Eisen's show today. It was all about Dylan Raiola. It was all about how Rich Eisen loves Dylan Raiola. And I don't want to talk about how he mimics everything else that he does. I want to talk about how he looks like him when he plays football. That's cool as shit that you're getting. That's God. Yeah, I mean, I've never been a Kansas City Chiefs fan. Fucking hate them. Everybody knows this. Never been a Patrick Mahomes fan, but how can you not become a fan of a guy that your new guy is now completely modeling everything after? The way that Rhule's handling him too, like Rhule even kind of acknowledged everything today. He was like, why wouldn't he mimic everything he's doing? He's the best quarterback on the planet right now.
I mean, maybe not you, but me at my age, how many people out there watching and listening when we were kids played basketball with our tongue out and all this other stuff. Michael Jordan, that's what you do. Like anybody bitching and moaning about it, even though I don't like all the comparisons, it's more of just I'm sick and tired of hearing about it. I get it. And who the fuck cares? That's what you do as a younger person is you mimic the people that you see on TV and you idolize and you watch and you try to emulate. That's what you do. Relax. Jesus.
Well, and people forget that he didn't play football at a young age. He was a baseball player. And when he was getting into football, that was when the Mahomes mania was going on, and he was working with Mahomes' quarterback coach.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Dad went and got him the best quarterbacks coach out there that just turned Mahomes into Mahomes early on. And they just took this track together. And he's just younger than him. He's 10 years behind him, basically. 9 years behind him. He's 9 years younger. And it's cool as fuck to watch.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if Mahomes was doing Mahomes Now stuff when he was actually at Texas Tech with a good team?
Yeah.
Or with even half the defense that we have right now?
And also, I can't stand Mahomes mainly because of who he plays for. If he was on my team, guess who would love
I'd be
Mahomes?
fucking happy as shit.
This guy. Like, fuck, especially the stupid fucking quarterback that we have at the Titans. But
I didn't think you guys had a quarterback on the roster.
We really don't.
The way you're playing right
He's busy spreading mayonnaise all over his face.
No one knows what it means.
Oh, I think they do. They've seen the commercials.
I have not, but that's terrible.
Oh, they're bad.
Sounds bad.
By the way, Matt took the over on the points on the first drive. He said that's a well-oiled script machine.
Yeah, that's the same for me.
I would, if this was in Illinois, I would take the under, but since it's home and we're going to be juiced up for this primetime game, which, by the way, my youngest and myself will be there, I'm going to take the over.
What is this talk? What is this talk about? Oh, it's on a short week, and we don't know if the atmosphere will be as hyped and all this and that. Blah, blah. What the fuck are people talking about? It's the 400th
haven't heard any of
sellout.
that.
I heard it this afternoon on the radio. It's the 400th sellout.
Are those the stupid people that are still pissed off that we're playing on a Friday night? No, the high school players.
I don't even know. If the rest of the high schools in the state didn't take notice of what all the Lincoln public schools did and move their games to fucking Thursday, I'm sorry for you. Whatever.
Or
You're gonna
Saturday.
have or Saturday. You're gonna have low attendance.
There's
whatever.
actually going to be a high school game in Memorial Stadium on Saturday.
Cool as shit. Cool as shit.
Yeah.
Why not? Take advantage of this opportunity. We don't live in this squared off box anymore where everything has to be just so.
Yeah.
Fuck it. It's cool as shit that every eye that loves college football that's not at a high school football game that night will be on Nebraska.
And if you want to go watch little Jimmy play, go watch little Jimmy play.
Yeah,
and
you can
give
watch
your
it on
ticket
your
to
phone.
somebody else. Like, fuck.
Yeah. But I don't think this stadium's going to lack juice.
No.
Especially after we got a week off last week.
And it's a conference game.
Yeah.
Like, if this was a Friday night Northern Iowa
It's
game,
a
it'd be a
ranked
different
home
conversation.
opener. It's a ranked home conference opener. Let's
Get
go.
the fuck out of here. Question number 2, rushing yards by Illinois. I basically put it at 100. So 99.5. Illinois is averaging 160 yards per game. They had 79 versus Kansas. Nebraska allows 70 yards per game, and Illinois had 21 yards against us last year. So will they get to 100? By the way, I'll just let you know, Matt took the over, but they don't get close to their average, which is 160.
Yeah. Something in the back of my head's kind of telling me that yes, only because, and this is some foreshadowing for later in the show, but I personally don't think this is going to be that much of a game. I think we're going to get up on them early, and we're going to see a lot of guys play on defense again. I'm actually going to take the over on this just because of what we saw against Northern Iowa last week, and the fact that I think Illinois is going to try and mimic that a little bit to try and control what happens to Altmaier.
The leaky yardage that Northern Iowa got.
Here's the thing about that, and I responded on our page to Michael Severe making a comment about that during the game, and I just don't see the leaky yardage thing as that big of a deal when you're comparing, because the comparison was made to last season to this season. It's like, okay, but last season they were teaching the basic fundamentals of you need to get a tackle, get your guy to the ground, stop the yards. This year, they've upped the game. Like we've already said before, they're trying to play more NFL style defense this year. They're trying to teach these guys, prepare these guys to go to the next level. And in order to do that, you create turnovers. And to create turnovers, you stop your man and you actually hold him up and you start ripping at the ball. You get guys, you're gang tackling, you're ripping. That's what they're doing. A lot of people wanted to bash all over John Bullock after they just sucked his dick all week last week after how good he played against those little ladies next door. And then all of a sudden he misses a couple tackles in the first half of this game. And it's like, oh, he's, looking like he's back to walk-on status is something I saw somebody post. I'm like, first of all, people are going to have down games.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to miss tackles. If you're trying to tackle, you're going to miss a tackle eventually. But second of all, some people just need to understand what we're trying to do right now.
Yep.
There's more to this than just get them to the ground.
And we use these types of games to build for later in the season.
Absolutely. You know what we should have been coming out of that game with? A plus 2 or 3 or 4 turnover margin.
Yeah.
A game like that should have been used for that. And they tried their damnedest.
Absolutely.
Somebody also needs to make a point about the fact that, we were having dudes trail 3 or 4 yards on a guy that was 6'4", 250 pounds running the fucking ball.
Yep. I'm actually going to take the under on the 99.5 rushing yards by Illinois because we are going to have Mekhi Bayer for an entire game and Jamari Butler's back. I think they're having them for the first half to set a standard right away will set them back where they can't get over 100.
Fuck it. Nope. I changed mine. You just changed my mind. I'm going under. I'm going with you. Matt could be the negative asshole.
All right. This is the same question, but for Nebraska. Rushing yards by Nebraska, I have it at 149.5. Nebraska is averaging 171 per game. Illinois allows 123. Kansas had 179. So I basically just split the difference between the two averages as far as Nebraska and Illinois and put it at 150. Can we get above 150?
Fuck yeah!
That's my only answer.
Okay.
I do think we're gonna run the ball on them pretty hard. Like we already talked about, they kind of flip-flopped. Last year their front seven was really good and their back end was rebuilding. They're switched right now. They lost their 2 big guys up front. I see us being able to get some gash yards on them, especially after running the ball so poorly last week. We got to have a good showing. I think Dowdell goes for 100 yards for the first time.
That was one of the reasons I kind of, when I ended up putting 150 on here, I was like, that seems super low, but I mean, it's hard for me to justify going higher than 150 when we had 142 against Northern Iowa.
That's fair.
So
that's fair.
It's like, if anybody that's saying like, 150 is way too low, I probably don't disagree with you. That's why I'm also taking the over. But again, justifiably, we've also only gone over 150 one time out of the 3 games that we played. So, that's where I put the number. Question number 4, Nebraska offensive third down conversions. Illinois is allowing 38.4%, and Nebraska is getting 50%. So I basically split the difference and put it at 44%. Kansas had 46%, by the way, third down conversions against Illinois.
What'd you set our number at again?
44%. Against the little sister to the west, we had 25%.
Yeah.
So Matt took the over with no explanation.
I think this has got to be a focus for us.
Yes, that's why I almost had this question for last week because of how bad we did against the little sister to the west. I wanted to do it for the following week, but I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to waste this question on Northern Iowa, so I was saving it for this game.
Yeah, I feel like it's over.
Okay.
I don't really have a reason behind it other than it's got to, that's been a focus this week, especially after it wasn't good against Northern Iowa. Yeah, it's going to be there. The only thing I guess I'll say about that is it's not a stat that I'm as worried about offensively this year just because of how dynamic we are compared to last year. Last year, we had to stay on schedule.
Yeah.
If we didn't stay on schedule, which includes a lot of third downs, which means that number really tells you a lot, it's important. But if we're missing on third down right now, it's also not the end of the world for us to pick up that first down because frequently you're going to see us go for it where we wouldn't last year.
Yeah. I'm going to take the under, but I still think we're going to be above 40%. I think it's going to be right around in that number.
That's fair.
Question number 5. Who throws more interceptions, Illinois or Nebraska or push? Illinois has thrown 0 interceptions on the season, and they've gotten 6. We have thrown 1 interception and gotten 4. So it's pretty even on both sides.
I'm going with Nebraska.
Okay.
Shocker, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm going with
throw more interceptions.
throw more
Not
interceptions.
receive.
I'm going with Illinois.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yep.
I do think that we're going to be the first team this season that gets to Altmaier. We're going to make him uncomfortable. Just like last year, we're going to make him scramble around. Chances are good he's going to run the ball a little bit less than he did last year, and he's going to have to chuck it up, especially if we get up a little bit big early, like I think. They're going to take shots. They're going to take chances. I think Malcolm Hartzog's going to sit back there, and he's kind of playing this, I might not be the greatest in coverage, but I'm also going to be the biggest ball hawk out here other than Tommy Hill, which nobody wants to throw to.
Yeah, exactly. Like, cool. I know the ball's not going to go over there because Tommy's standing there. I'm just going to stand in this area.
Where do we want the ball to go? Put Tommy Hill not there.
Yeah.
That's where the ball is, guys.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where we are. We've got 2 ball hawks out on the field. If they're playing on opposite sides of the field from each other, especially, we've got good chances if he starts having to chuck it up and sling it around like he did last year.
I'm going to join Matt and say push. I respect the shit out of this secondary with how I saw them play specifically against Kansas. And looking at some of their numbers, I think that they're going to get at least 1 on Raiola. And I just don't know how many we're going to get, so I'm just going to play the odds and go with a push.
Something I will say, and I hope I'm not blowing up one of your questions coming up, but based on what I saw, I watched every single one of their interceptions. They're make or break interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
These are not, I was in the right place at the right time. These are
good plays.
I'm taking a chance and I made the play.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you have a little bit more of a skilled quarterback who draws a guy off to go make that play and he's a second too early, that's a big, wide open wide receiver with all that green grass behind him.
Yep.
I feel like there's going to be an opportunity for some explosive plays because of how aggressive they play on that back end.
I totally see that. Question 6, sacks by Nebraska, 2.5. Nebraska has 9 sacks on the season. Illinois has only allowed 5 on the season. And Nebraska got 2 against Illinois last year. So as much as we pressured him last year, we still only had 2 sacks on him last year.
You made the comment to me earlier this week when I was comparing size comparison to the way that Northern Iowa's offensive line was able to seemingly, like, they made Ty and Nash for the first time this year look like normal sized football players instead of giants. We're running into the same exact size wise, except for their center is like 50 pounds heavier. But you also made the comment, but they're also looking at potentially replacing some guys. They're not.
That was one of the things on that Illinois podcast that I listened to yesterday. They said, if these certain guys, they said the names, I don't remember what they were. If these certain guys struggle this week against Nebraska, then you can definitely see some changes on that offensive line going forward in the season. So, there's clearly some guys that are on some thin ice, which, considering how big they are, being on thin ice is a bad idea.
and we're talking about the Illinois fan base making this comment about their play after Central Michigan, Kansas, and EIU. Who the fuck is EIU?
Eastern Illinois.
Yeah, cool. Directional Illinois. Here we go. Not the one that just smoked Notre Dame. I do feel like they're going to have to replace some guys because they are going to get beat up this week, especially after the fact that we didn't get to the Northern Iowa quarterback the way we wanted to. Jamar Butler's going to come back super, super fresh. It's going to happen. I'm going over that 2. You said 2.5 or 2?
2.5.
Yeah, I'm going over 2.5.
Okay. Matt also went over. He said we get 3. You know what? Because I said what I said as far as the under on the rushing yards, and I basically said it's because Bayer and Butler are back, and they're going to set a standard in the first half. Initially, when I put up this question, I was like, I'll probably go under. Nope. With that aspect, I'm going to go with the over. Question number 7, Illinois wide receiver Pat Bryant. His yards per catch. He has 15 catches for 235 yards, 4 touchdowns, averaging 15.87 per catch. He had 23.3 versus Kansas per catch. One of the big things about him averaging 15.8 per catch is that he only has 2 catches that are over 30 yards, and they're 37 and 31. So that means he's very consistent. It's not like there's one that's like a bomb for a shit ton of yards that skews the average at all. So he's a very consistent pass catcher for a good amount of yards. Nebraska allows 10 yards per catch on the season. Travis Hunter, for comparison, he had 11 yards per catch against us while he plays for that one team. So the number for Pat Bryant yards per catch is 13.5. It's less than what his average is, but it's up there.
Yeah, I'm going to go.
Matt took the under.
I'm going to go over. And I'm going to say that I think he only probably gets one.
One catch?
Yeah, one or two.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, he's one of the two guys that they throw the ball to, so he's going to get targeted a lot.
Yeah, I think we're going to make them throw the... Like, that's one thing that Tony White's defense has been really good at doing so far, is making you throw to guys that you're not wanting to throw to.
Mm-hmm.
We did it in the Colorado game, which that if we're looking at skill position players... We're not going to play another team other than Ohio State, maybe, that's going to stack up like those guys. And we were able to hold those guys down. So I'm going to go over because he's maybe going to get one long one.
Okay.
He's going to be a Malcolm Hartzog fall down touchdown guy for like 35 yards, and that's going to pump his average over that 13.5.
Okay. I'm really struggling with what I'm going to pick on this one.
Well, that's the problem with you setting the lines here, guy.
Yeah, I know. Fuck. I'm going to semi-reluctantly take the over with you. I
like it.
He's just so consistent on what he gets. It's just... my last question is my favorite question I've had all year. What will be longer? Illinois' longest made field goal or Nebraska's longest scoring play? Illinois' average distance on field goals made is 40.4 yards. They have made from 43, 49, 50, and 59. Obviously, some lower ones too, but those are some of the big ones.
Get a 59-yarder.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't remember seeing that.
Nebraska has a 59-yard touchdown, which is their longest, and their longest field goal made is 31 yards. So which one will be longer? Illinois' longest field goal made or Nebraska's longest scoring play? Matt took Illinois field goals because they're going to need it.
Well, I'm going to use a little insider info here and looking ahead at the weather.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be a little windy. It's supposed to be a little windy with an average wind speed of 14 miles per hour, gusts of up to 27. Matt Rhule's talked about it several times that the wind gets going in Memorial Stadium. It can fuck with the ball pretty good. I'm going to go with Nebraska scoring play. Rhule has referenced this being the preseason, these first three games being the preseason, and an NFL coach knows you don't show a lot of your stuff in the preseason. I think there's a lot of dynamic stuff that can happen in our offense, especially when you look at a guy like Jalen Lloyd, who just hasn't gotten going yet, or Jamari Butler, who has gotten going, but a yellow thing comes out every time he touches the ball.
Not Jamari Butler.
Or not, I'm sorry, not Jamari Butler, Ja'Cory Barney.
Okay.
Ja'Cory Barney, every time he touches the ball, a little yellow thing flies out. It's weird
even
as
like
fuck.
with Jalen Lloyd, how many times has he been just so close, just overthrown, just a touch? Like
This is a time when some of those magical things will start to happen, I think. I see a Jalen Lloyd, especially, a Jalen Lloyd bomb happening in this that's going to result in like 60-plus yards.
I'm going to take Nebraska, but I think it's going to be a running touchdown.
Ooh. Little Ramir Johnson, Emmett Johnson special?
Somebody, yeah.
I like that.
Well, and honestly, since you said Ramir, I think I'll paraphrase it down. It's going to be a running back because even Ramir can catch like a swing pass and go the distance. Same type of thing that you're talking about with Ja'Cory Barney. But I think it's going to be by a running back.
It's going to be really big as to whether or not we can get some penalty stuff cleaned up. 2 games in a row, the penalties have been bad. And that's something that we didn't see a ton of down the stretch with Matt Rhule.
Which is weird because against Northern Iowa, we only had 4 penalties.
Yeah, well,
4 accepted penalties. I guess I should phrase it that way.
I think there were 2 or 3 that didn't get accepted because it felt like we had a lot more than that. When
I'm just talking about what the stat page says.
Yeah, you say 4 right now, that kind of takes me by surprise,
It
actually.
took me by surprise, too.
Because I felt like we had a couple that killed drives in the second half.
Yeah.
And that was the same thing that happened in week 2 for us. So if we can get some of the penalty stuff cleaned up, if we can just keep our momentum moving on offense, I want to see the third quarter be a good third quarter. Last year, the second quarter was our awful quarter, and this year it's our best. This year, third quarter has got to be our worst so far, and I want to see that Satterfield's coming out with a scripted, ready to go. Let's roll it on down and score again, just like we do at the beginning. You should be doing that in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see it. All right, rolling into the game predictions. We've got Matt on the line joining us from the capital, Washington, D.C., right, Matt?
What's happening? Yes, sir. Well, just outside. I'm in McLean, Virginia, but
There you
nobody
go.
knows the fucking difference. So
Yeah, nobody knows what that means.
It all runs together out
Yeah,
there.
where's their button? No one knows what that means.
Yeah.
No one knows what it means.
And you're
it's
back.
just not provocative.
You're back tomorrow, aren't you?
Well, technically Thursday, but I'll be back very late tomorrow. Yes,
There you go. There you go.
Hey, you'll be back for the game, so no worries.
That's what matters.
absolutely.
Speaking of, that game is kicking off Friday night at 7 p.m. in Memorial Stadium. Coverage is on Fox. Already talked a little bit about the weather. It is supposed to be a little breezy. Wind gusts up to 27 miles an hour, it says, but game time weather is 82 degrees. I was there for the Northern Iowa game last week. It was fucking beautiful. It was probably 80 degrees out when the game kicked off, but we were in the shade, and it never felt hot at all.
I'm a little disappointed that the weather has changed because early in the week it talked about how it was going to storm for the entire game, and me and my youngest son Dale will be there, and I'm like, hell yeah, I want to sit in the stadium with him while it's just pouring ass rain and we're watching football. That'd have been the fucking best.
It sounds a little wet, a little
But-
moist.
Sounds like the rain won't come until after midnight. So
Well, I for one am happy that we're going to be able to see a weather that is going to be optimal for dynamic football.
I get it. I get it.
I want to see Raiola go.
I know, but I like these sloppy games too. So
Matt, you were almost perfect last week with Mr. Pessimistic on the picks, and you went a little bit that way again this week. I hope you're fucking wrong as shit, man.
Hey, I hope I'm just wrong on the ones that were on the pessimistic side. I felt like I was pretty middle of the road this week.
Maybe a little bit more middle of the road. But we're looking at this Nebraska game. It opened at an over-under of 43.5 and a minus 8.5 favorite for Nebraska. It has dropped a point on both. The total now is at 42.5, and Nebraska's favored by 7.5, meaning that there's been considerable amount of money going on that under and going on Illinois. Matt, what are you thinking about this game, man?
I think Illinois is having a pretty phenomenal year as far as Illinois standards go, at least under Brett Bielema so far. But I think they're going to have a bit of a rude awakening this week, and I think that 7.5 points is pretty generous. I'm definitely taking Nebraska with the points.
How bad do you think we're going to make Kansas look this week?
Well, Kansas can fuck right off. They're not good this year. And I bet I'm going to guess this is closer to a 20-point game for Nebraska.
I love it. You're going to go over then, I would guess?
I am going. Would you say 48.5?
Yeah, 42.5. It's actually down there.
42.5. Yeah, then I'm definitely taking the over as well.
Yeah, they're looking at
I
this
don't
as a
see
defensive
Illinois.
battle. It's
I don't see
interesting because
Illinois scored.
yeah. Well, I go look at the props, like the game props, and the line for touchdowns is set at Nebraska at 2.5 and Illinois at 1.5. So I think that's interesting. I definitely don't see Illinois scoring more than one touchdown in this game. We didn't give it up to Shiloh or I guess Shador and Travis. So I don't think we're giving it up to any of them.
Never heard of her.
Yeah, Shador next door. Yeah, whatever. I'm with you, Matt. I think that this is going to be a bigger game than a lot of people are anticipating. If there's a fake ranked team in this atmosphere on Friday night, it might be both of us, but if I'm going to choose one to be fake, it's definitely going to be Illinois.
Shocker.
ESPN's Football Power Index has us at a 69.3% chance to win this game.
Nice.
That
Nice
to
point
me,
three.
that to me doesn't suggest just one touchdown. So I'm definitely going over on this, especially if I'm getting it at 7.5. But I feel super comfortable with this being probably a 3-score win for us. They have the money line currently set at minus 320. That's you're not getting any value going on Nebraska money line this week. They don't think Illinois got much of a chance to win this game. Jared, what do you think?
I don't think that it's going to be a blowout by Nebraska.
I don't know necessarily a blowout. I think a minimum, like 17-point dominant performance.
I don't think that it's going to be a dominant performance. I think that it could be a comfortable performance with a closer score, like kind of like one of those where maybe it's 14 points, but
we gave a Pateti at the end.
It just kind of seemed, you never really thought it was a 14-point game. It kind of felt more like a 21-point game. Both teams have played similar competition for this season so far. Both teams are scoring basically the same number of points and allowing basically the same number of points. Both teams have only given up 2 touchdowns on the entire season on defense. I see this as a very similar game to both. Yeah, Nebraska might have a little bit more high-powered offense, but Illinois just methodically does. We've talked about this for our entire show so far, how efficient Illinois has been this season. Again, not flashy, but just efficient. But Nebraska, it's the 400th consecutive sellout for Nebraska. Nebraska won the 100th consecutive sellout. They won the 200th consecutive sellout. They won the 300th consecutive sellout. That streak certainly is not ending this time on 400. So yes, we win the game. I'd probably take the over on the point total. But I think it's going to be, I would take the points for Nebraska and maybe put it at maybe 10 points. But I think this is going to be at least a decently competitive game for 2.5 to 3 quarters.
Do you think it goes over the 42.5?
Yeah, I'd take the over.
Yeah, I like that.
But both teams are averaging basically 32, 34 points per game. Yeah, I'm taking the over on that one.
I see this as like a 37-7 type game.
Oh, no, like I said, I think
that's
it's going to be
where I'm
about a
gonna be.
10-point game.
37-7, 37-10. That's where I'm going to be with this. All right. You heard it here.
4-0, here we come.
4-0, here we go.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.